Welcome to the Le Col Cycling Club. I'm Chris OP and this video is all about our Le Col Strava 8848 climbing challenge. First things first, what is the challenge? The challenge is between the 1st and the 30th of June to accumulate 8,848 meters of elevation gain on your training rides. You can do this in one ride, or you can do it over the course of the entire month. Anyone who accumulates 8,848 meters of climbing between the 1st and 30th of June will unlock our special 8848 Le Col jersey. However, if you're an LCCC member and a Strava subscriber and you complete the ascent over multiple rides, you unlock the jersey at a special price of £35. If you complete the ascent in just one ride, however, we will send you the jersey for free. Anyone can achieve the 8848 challenge. You have enough time to do it, but depending on where you live and your level of fitness, it's going to require a little bit of consideration. Let's first focus on completing the challenge over multiple rides. You have 4 weeks to do over 8,000 meters of elevation gain. Let's break that down into 2,000 meters each week. If I was you, I would aim to complete 500 meters on 4 rides each week. There are many route tracking apps available online, and this is one of the best ways to plan your elevation gain. If you live somewhere very flat like the Netherlands, the chances are it's going to be very difficult and you may well have to really get creative with the sort of route that you're planning. If, however, you live where I live and it's brutally hilly all the time, you won't need to think too much. Start by planning a loop of around an hour to an hour and a half to work out how many meters of elevation gain per hour you are able to achieve. If you aim to complete the challenge over multiple rides, over multiple weeks throughout the month, consistency is key. Keep a tally of the meters of climbing that you've achieved on each ride. Don't leave yourself too much to do in the second half of the month because it's going to be very difficult. Try and do more of the climbing if possible in that first 2 weeks. That way, if the weather changes or you get tired, it's a little bit easier to maintain the momentum in the second half of the month. And remember, you do not need to complete the challenge on one single climb. You can use any amount of roads, any amount of climbs, make the routes as diverse as you like. It is not about riding up and down the same stretch of road a million times. And one final thing for anyone aiming to achieve this in multiple rides throughout the month, we have a new 3-week climbing focused training plan, which you can use to help achieve the 8848 challenge. If, however, you do aim to complete the challenge on one single ride and on one stretch of road, then I have a few tips for you. When it comes to choosing the climb, there are a few considerations to make. Number one, obviously the gradient, but we'll touch on that in just a second, because one of the most overlooked factors is how technical the climb is. It's lovely climbing a climb with beautiful switchbacks, but this is going to slow you down on the way down the hill, and it's going to add stress and fatigue to your neck and your shoulders. Choose a climb with fewer tight turns, that way you get back to the bottom sooner, meaning you can head back up the hill quicker. When it comes to choosing the gradient of the climb you're going to ride, the chances are you won't have a huge amount of selection, but if you do, generally speaking, the lighter the rider, the steeper the gradient you'll prefer. Equally, the heavier you are, the shallower the gradient you might like. If you're around 80 kilos or more, chances are 5% will be steep enough for you. If you're lighter, and you really want to go for a fast attempt at the 8848 challenge, then something between 10 and 12% will be preferable. One thing I do recommend though is finding a climb with steady gradients, nothing with steep pitches and shallower sections. You want to maintain a consistent rhythm throughout your ride. Whilst talking about gradient, there's one more important thing which can add to just how difficult the ride becomes, and that is the camber of the road. Depending on the climb you're riding and the camber of the road, you'll notice there are shallower grades available as you snake your way up the climb. Search for these shallower grades, especially as you fatigue. If you're doing over 50 hill reps, they'll become very obvious, and you'll notice just by feel that the road is slightly faster in those sections than it otherwise is. Avoid the steeper cambers and the steeper pitches at all costs. All this is going to do is slow you down and add to unnecessary fatigue. Now we're moving on to two of my favorite topics, pacing and fueling. If you're conducting this ride in one go, you're going to need to make sure that you pace it correctly. And that means you're probably going to be spending around 12 hours on the bike. And for this, the majority of your pedaling is going to be spent in zone 2. Maybe you can have brief forays into zone 3 if you're feeling particularly excitable, but the more time you spend in zone 2, the more likely your success at completing this challenge in one attempt will be. When we talk about pacing, we also need to consider our gearing, making sure you have a gear which enables you to pedal gently without having to strain your legs at a really low cadence for the entire duration of the ride is going to be really important. So that might mean putting on a lower gear than you would normally use on your bike. If you do choose a climb with fluctuating gradients, use the shallower grades to ease up a little bit, earn yourself a tiny bit of recovery, meaning you can go that little bit deeper when the gradient pitches up again. One of the most important factors to consider when attempting a fast 8848 time is to turn at the correct point, either at the top or the bottom of the climb. Don't wait until the gradient flattens out completely. By doing this, you'll be wasting forward distance travelled. Turn just after the steepest pitches. This will help propel you back down the climb, but also make the most of the gradient available to you, contributing towards your accumulated ascent. When it comes to fueling, as always, I recommend trying to keep things nice and simple. With this, I mean, focus on consuming around 500 mils per hour of fluid. This would ideally have some sort of electrolyte because that's easier for your body to absorb. And then when it comes to nutrition, in the days leading up to your big ride, you're going to need to make sure you're fueling adequately, eating around 8 grams per kilo of body weight of carbohydrate to make sure that your glycogen stores are topped up nicely and that you're ready to go. And then on the day of the ride itself, a really solid breakfast followed by 60 grams per hour of carbohydrate plus. You can eat up to around 120 grams of carbohydrate in the earlier hours of the ride. Whatever it is you do, make sure you don't eat anything that's going to be too bulky and difficult to digest. It's much better if you just focus on getting the carbohydrate in, because this is ultimately what's going to fuel you through the ride. It's a long day in the saddle. Don't attempt to carry all of the food and drink that you're going to need for the entire ride with you from the start. This is just unnecessary weight which you don't need to be carrying. It's inefficient and will lead to fatigue. Instead, try and find some sort of storage area for your stuff. Maybe have someone to support you on the ride. And then mix it up. You can have savory food, you can have sweet food. Whatever it is you eat throughout the period of the 12, 14 hours or maybe more, it's going to become quite important that you have something which you actually enjoy eating. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to ingest enough calories throughout the day. And now that you've considered all of the before information, why not do one final thing and think about taking a phone or a camera with you to document your attempt at the 8848 challenge. Whether you do it in one ride or over the course of a month, take some photos, take some videos, not just to remember it for yourself, but also to inspire other people to embark on such a challenge. Good luck completing the 8848 Le Col Strava challenge. Hopefully you found the tips useful and you enjoy the month of June climbing up hills.